Hello, it's SmallBizDavid, and we are now doing part 2 of chapter 22 of my video book, How Do You Answer These 100 Plus Questions About Your 2015 Small Business. And this is a unique chapter in that Sally Sue Ember, who I am doing the chapter with, about a little over a month ago, she invited me to be on an HOA that she produces, and I happily accepted. And we talked about publishing and how important it is for publishing, why people publish, what are the reasons, why should a small business owner publish. And then I said to Sally after it was done, I said, you know, it'd be kind of interesting for my video book if we did a part 2 to this chapter, and I would produce the HOA and have a discussion with you. So it's very unique. It's probably the only time in my video book that we're going to have that back and forth. But Sally, welcome, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to talk about something that's very near and dear to both of us.
Well, thank you, and you're very welcome, and thank everyone for listening and watching now and in the future.
If I might set up the discussion a little bit to talk about what we did in part A of chapter 22, in your interview with me, I have formally published 3 times. First time was in 2008. I self-published a book, How Do You Answer These 749 Questions About Your Small Business. And it was a lot of fun. It was a project that I literally, from the time that a friend told me to go home from a meeting that we were having until I was holding a published book, a printed book, manufactured book in my hand, was 100 days. I don't know if I ever told you that, Sally. I did that project in 100 days. It was just, I devoted 24/7 and just got it done.
Wow.
And then because of that, well, the reason I published that book, pure and simple, it was a marketing thing. My son, who was a sophomore in college at that time, a marketing student, said to me one summer, his sophomore summer, or it might have been his freshman summer, he actually said, "Dad, you're not positioning yourself right. You're not branding yourself right. You're not marketing yourself right." I said, "Okay, Jordan, what do I need to do?" And we sat down and we developed a strategy. And later on in that summer, part of that strategy was to publish a book that really gave me and branded me and gave the essentials of what I'm all about. Second project, a couple years later, a more traditional publisher invited me to participate in what I call a collaborative book project, where there were 32 other authors. It just so happens that that particular book received a Quilly Award. Sally, I went out to Hollywood and wore a tux and got an award for a book presented by the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors.
Wow, that's exciting.
It was very exciting. It was a
there a red carpet and everything?
All the stuff was there. All the stuff was there. But the most exciting part about it was that I had the opportunity to go one-on-one and meet Brian Tracy, who he participated in the book project himself, but he's always, in my mind, has been my #1 small business and life mentor. And I actually met him and we went one-on-one at that event, and what an exciting experience that was. And then last year, if you follow me, you know that I established as a business strategy a business objective for 2015 was to publish a video book. And at the time I made that a strategy, I didn't know exactly what it was going to entail, but I had a feeling. And so I have now published 20 chapters of a video book. And this is chapter 22, Sally.
Thank you.
And so what I'd like to do today in part 2 is to talk with Sally about her very first publishing project. What happened? How did it happen? Why did it happen? What did it do for her personally? And as we speak, Sally is publishing another book. And so I'd like her to compare her first time experience with what is happening today. And then we'll tie it all together at the end. So Sally,
okay.
you have the stage.
All right. Well, it's really funny to me to talk about publishing at this point because my journey into publishing started over 20 years ago. And at that time, there was no self-publishing except for vanity presses and people who kept their books in their garages, if you know what I mean. And nobody who was a self-respecting author would consider self-publishing. 1993, 94, 95, 96, that's what I'm talking about. So way before ebooks and way before the whole internet explosion of Amazon and all those things that are now so common that people can't hardly remember that they weren't always here. So at this point, I'm a self-published ebook author only, mostly because of a lack of funds at this point that I would love to have print on demand or print books, but I haven't been able to fund them. But I do have 2 ebooks in a science fiction series and 1 more that I'm releasing this fall.
Let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk that for a moment. You said 2 things just now that I would like to I'd like to pursue. The first thing that you mentioned was an ebook. And let's talk about how you define an ebook, what the process is. And the second thing that you said I found very interesting just now, and I'd like to pursue that when you talked about print on demand. And you don't have the funds available. I'm not emphasizing you don't have the funds available, but you're going to probably teach me something about print on demand that I don't personally know. So let's talk about those 2 items, if you will.
Okay, well, we'll start with print on demand and ebook together because they actually go together. You, as an author, have a choice at this point if you want to be a self-published author. And the choice is this. You can do it all yourself, or you can get other people to help you. And the degree to which you get other people to help you is partly due to how much funding you have available or how many people are willing to do things for you for free. And one of the biggest things people need help with is formatting. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that the format of an electronic book, what we call ebooks, is not the same as the format for a print book. There are lots of differences. So you can't just take the file that you have, like on Microsoft Word, for your nice book and send it to someone and say, here, that's my ebook. And you can't do that and send it to someone else and say, here, that's the book I want you to print. Because there are lots of differences, and somebody who doesn't know about that is going to end up with a mess. It won't look right. It won't flow right on a Kindle or any other kind of e-reader for the electronic version, and it won't have the right formatting for a print version. The covers are different. So for example, one of the things I have to do if I want to get my ebook into a print book is I have to pay my cover artist to create a different version of my cover, which for her is a different process. It's a different size, and so a lot of things are different in order for it to look right. And then I also have to find out how to format it or do it myself or pay someone to do it.
Sally, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you're not prepared, that's fine. But is it possible that you could bring up from your files some of the things that you're talking about to actually show the folks what it is? Or
well, I can't do a screen share because I think it'll crash my computer, but I can tell people that the main differences are the cover design, the size and the shape of the cover are different. The margins and the chapter breaks are different. And the number of blank pages, what we call front matter and back matter, are different. And sometimes even the font or the typeface within the book is going to look different enough that you might want to have a different one for your print book than you do for your electronic book.
Interesting.
So those are just some of the differences. There are other ones that are more subtle, but those are the main ones, and that you cannot avoid those. So for example, when you're reading a book on an e-reader, David, it flows. You don't have page breaks between chapters, or if you do, it looks wrong because it's just all this blank space on your e-reader. If you get a book like that on your e-reader, that person doesn't know what they're doing and didn't format it correctly, because there is only supposed to be 3 spaces that you put in as a 36-point space between the end of the line of one chapter and the name of the next chapter on an e-reader. But in a regular print book, we expect to turn the page. Even if that page before it has only got 4 lines on it, we leave it blank, and we have a new page for every chapter. So think about that for a minute, and think about how many changes you would then have to make in your ebook to make that look right on a print book.
Okay, that begs the question, or questions, that what you just said, is that standard industry protocol, or is it some guidelines that you personally have developed for yourself, or that's pretty general among the in the publishing world?
It's actually absolute. And in fact, there are some places that support the publishing of e-books that won't allow you to publish an ebook unless it's formatted correctly. For example, Smashwords, which is one of the first ones that came out with this always available, free to the author ability to publish, self-publish an ebook. They have something that they call their meat grinder, where you put your Microsoft Word or whatever other thing you've used to create your document into their system. And if you've done all the things they tell you, which by the way, they have a manual of how to format it that, I'm not kidding you, is over 100 pages long, okay? Because that's how complicated it is to do it correctly. But if you do it correctly, then it goes through their meat grinder and it comes out as an EPUB, which is an e-publication that's then able to be transferred easily into Kindle, Nook, iBooks, any format you want, PDF, or you can keep it as an RTF, which is a rich text format, or you can keep it as a Microsoft Word document, which you started with. But in that way, you go through their meat grinder and then you have everything you need. If you don't do it correctly, it won't pass. And you have to keep fixing it and keep fixing it and keep fixing it. And some people have had like ulcers and anxiety and panic attacks because they couldn't figure out how to fix it. That's why they hire someone to do the formatting for them, because I'm sorry to say, they can't read the manual. They can't follow directions. I don't have that problem, and mine went through fine the first time.
Well, it's not so much they can't. I mean, it's a process. It adds something. It adds something to the whole endeavor, and obviously, well, folks aren't necessarily comfortable with that. And you know what? Listen,
no, I have to explain one thing before you go on. I have to explain one thing. If you don't start correctly with your book, and you want it to be an ebook, and then you try to follow the manual, you will have heartbreak upon heartbreak, because there are hidden formatting components to every document that most people don't know about. You can't see them, or you do, but you don't know what they mean. Even if you say show hidden, you don't know what all these little symbols mean, and fixing it later is almost impossible. So they talk about the nuclear option, which is to take out all the formatting and start over, which is every author's nightmare. You don't want to have to do that. That means all the paragraph breaks, all your italics, all your bold, all of your special formatting for any purpose whatsoever disappears, and you have to start all over. All you have are words. You get to keep your capital letters. That's about it.
I'm smiling. You know why I'm smiling, Sally?
No.
I'm smiling because I created for myself a concept called a video book. And it's nothing different than I've been doing for the last couple years, but it's how I format it. And so I do a very traditional HOA, and because it's an HOA, it gets out into my stream, and I get all the SEO value for that as an HOA. Excuse me. I make the video after a week or whatever the defined period. I make it a private video, so people do not have access to it via YouTube or via my stream. And then I bring them back, and I go back to some of the traditional. I transition within the chapter. I put some written copy, original copy that I create that explains. And the other thing that I've done that is working extremely well is that I've been doing timeshares, time stamping on various chapters. And so that becomes a reading matter because it's content, but it also tells the folks, well, you know, if you don't want to watch this 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it might be, here's the key theme at minute 10:08. And that has worked extremely well. So I've kind of created my own guidelines for this, and it's being hosted on a website. It actually is a Google site. It's on Google servers. So there's got to be some value on doing it that way. And then we sell subscriptions as opposed to straight out selling the book. We sell access to the website.
Right.
And it's just a different approach. It's something that's worked very well for me. But as I listen to you, excuse me, talk about ebook and talk about other ways to format your book, I'm so glad that I chose the route that I chose, because quite honestly, I didn't want to add more work to the process. And
well, if you start out with an ebook, if you start out knowing how to do it by having read the manual for Smashwords or something similar, and you just do it that way, which is what I've been doing for my last 2 books, it's not any effort at all. I already had the first one correct, so now I just do them all correctly. But if you don't know what you're doing and you happen to do incorrectly, that's when you run into lots of problems. The other thing that's really different between ebooks and print-on-demand books is there are no page numbers in ebooks. But obviously, books that you hold in your hand have page numbers. So you've got to tell it to paginate. Lots of people don't know how to do that correctly. They end up with a mess. And the third thing that's different, that's very interesting to me, like what you're talking about, is that you can hyperlink your ebook. You can have a table of contents, and then each listing in the table of contents can jump to the bookmark of that chapter if you do it correctly, which they want you to do, but that's not a requirement. Well, I did it for my first book and my second, and I just finished doing it now for the middle of all of my third one, and now I'm doing it for my fourth one as I go. And what that means is if somebody's reading your book, especially your kind of book, David, if you did it as an ebook, they could just jump to the chapter they want, or a subheader if you hyperlinked all your subheaders, and wouldn't have to read any other part of the ebook they didn't want to go to read.
Well, we kind of have that. I mean, there is a table of contents, so to speak, and they can go. We've essentially.
Yeah, well, you do that with your timestamps. Exactly. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
So that's a perfect thing for people that are in a hurry or really know precisely what they want and don't want to mess with all the rest of it.
I have to ask the obvious, quite obvious to me as a marketing and salesperson. You are an author. You are an accomplished author, but as a part of what you do in life, do you offer your services in formatting, in assisting folks to take a manuscript, if you will, and put it into the format that it needs to be in order to be presented and published correctly?
No, I am an editor, and I do content, punctuation, grammar, and all that kind of editing. But I'm not interested in being a formatter. If you want to know the truth, I think it's hideously boring, and I would not ever make that my work. Okay, it's really too mechanical. It's not interesting at all to me. I'm much more interested in fixing people's writing, helping them write better, making it correct, things like that, not making the appearance better. I'm not an appearance person. I make mine correct, and that's it.
Well, you also talked about, what'd you call it, the grinder? The
meat grinder, the meat grinder. Yeah. Mark Coker is brilliant, by the way. He created this whole way for self-publishing for authors, and the meat grinder is the thing that everybody has to go through. I don't know how Amazon does it with CreateSpace and the way they do it with Kindle, but I already have a Mobi document to give to Amazon because I go through Smashwords first. So I never start with Amazon. I don't know how people do it when they start with Amazon. You'd have to ask somebody else how that works.
Okay, well, that's this is all really great stuff because, well, obviously publishing today is dramatically different than publishing was when you and I published a periodical, was my first business objective in life. And then I started one from scratch, a magazine, 4-color magazine. And so I'm definitely from the old school, but it's been very interesting to me to see how things are done today. And in a sense, they're way more exciting today than they were 40 years ago, in that because of the digital age that we live in, there's an immediacy to things that happen. We don't have to wait and see. We can test things. We can test ideas really, really quickly, and then go back to the drawing board, if you will.
Well, you're right. There is a certain level of newness and excitement and accessibility. There's a leveling that's going on where a lot more people have the capacity to put their work out into the public eye than ever used to be able to do it. So that whole stranglehold, all the gatekeeper kind of stuff that traditional publishing was managing for, centuries, is no longer the only way for people to get their work into the public eye. But I want to say something else about the whole process, which really disturbs me, which is that a lot of people do not have good editors. They do not have any editors. They'll do it all themselves. They don't have beta readers, or if they do, they're just their friends or their family members. They don't get enough good feedback, and the stuff they put out is really awful, like typos and mistakes that a 4th grader shouldn't make. And not only bad writing, like that's a subjectively bad writing, but incorrect stuff that's getting put out there that isn't even readable, like forgetting to put in punctuation or not noticing that you put it in twice, just basic stuff. And I find that disturbing because the quality of the writing that we want to put out that's under the rubric of self-publishing shouldn't be so varied, because it gives everybody who's a self-publisher a bad name when a lot of that stuff gets out there. But there's nothing we can do about it. People who do that do it, and we can't stop them.
Wow, you've raised another very, very interesting issue, which is really a sign of the times, and that is that there is so much information available today, and the process today is really trying to figure out what's good information and what's not so good information, and what do we go after, and there's that excuse me, that sense of immediacy. I want to know right now if it's good information or bad information, and the question then becomes, okay, in the very traditional world of publishing, you publish a book, your publisher would publish your book. The key to their business was distribution, getting that book in the bookstores, in the libraries, bookshelves, and then you, as the consumer, going in and trying to find out what it is that you wanted to read. What book were you going to grab off the shelf? What book were you going to grab and buy and actually invest in and take it home with you? Okay, that's the way business was done years ago. Today, with all the information that's available on the internet, is it more challenging to be noticed and to get recognized as an author today than it was 20 years ago when you published your first book?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's been an explosion in books, period, both print and electronic. There's millions more books available than have ever been available. So yeah, it is way harder to get noticed. And in certain genres, it's almost impossible. But even more importantly, the review process has been completely corrupted. Now, that isn't to say that it was ever uncorrupt. Okay, there were always people who could pay people to do a New York Times review. Kirkus, Kirkus reviews have always been paid for, and they still are. And there are lots of other places and ways you can get yourself positioned or situated. If you know the right people, you can get into the Saturday Evening Post in the old days, or you can get into the LA Times and the New York Times book review. You can get yourself reviewed. But if you do that now, a lot of the self-publishers that I've been talking to on Facebook and Google Plus and lots of other groups are doing what are called review swaps. They're starting these groups, these clubs, where you review 5 books in the group and they'll review your book among 4 other books and all this kind of stuff on Goodreads and on Book Likes and on Shelfari. There are all these places where authors gather and readers gather, and you're supposed to be able to get a review, read a review, and have it be honest. Well, that is not the case. People buy them. People lie, don't even read the books. People ditch somebody's and give them a 1-star when they never even read it, or really go after them because they're mad at them, or they're just trolls is what we call them, and they go after certain people and trash all their books. And other people get like a whole fan club that just votes up all their reviews and gives them 5 stars even when their books are CRAP. So the review process is, you can't even trust it.
Oh, CRA, okay, yeah. Gotcha.
You can't even trust it at all anymore. So and Amazon, this is the newest scandal among authors. Amazon is randomly, and I say this with good authority, randomly taking reviews off of authors' books pages because they're claiming that whoever did the review knew the author. And so therefore that invalidates the review. Well, after I just explained to you that we're all in these clubs, we're all in these groups, we're all talking to each other online. Do I know you, David? I've never met you in person. I don't know where you live. I don't know your family. I don't know much about you, but yeah, I know who you are. If I write a review of your book, somehow Amazon has this big brother way of finding out that we're connected. And if I write a review of your book, they might take it off because we are already knowing each other.
That's very, very interesting because I'm not going to mention, no, I'm not going to mention their names, but 2 very good friends of mine are both best-selling authors. And both of them, when they came out with, excuse me, actually their last 2 books, both of them, asked me to do Amazon reviews for them. And in fact, one of them, who sells, every year she sells thousands of books on this theme that she has that gets renewed every year. That's her thing. She does extremely well with it. And I'm usually her first review. She knows that I'll do it. She knows why I do it. I give an honest review. She doesn't pay me for it. I review her book because it's good stuff. It's information that I want small businesses to read and to understand. So you're telling me now that maybe in the past, or maybe certainly in the future, because I personally know these 2 folks, they might knock out my reviews. That's not right.
Well, Amazon is not revealing to anyone on what basis they make these decisions. They deliberately and adamantly refuse to explain their algorithm for making this determination, and yet they have 100% absolute power, and nobody can make them change it. So now a lot of people are saying they don't even want to look at Amazon reviews at all anymore because it's completely unfair. And some people's reviews have been taken down. And then they also say, Amazon claims that they are going to remove all the trolls, and they're going to not let trolls, you know, ditch a book or give it a 1-star and all this, but they don't do it. Writers will tell them, this person never read my book, this person has already got a vendetta against me, please take down their reviews, and Amazon won't take them down. So again, they're like completely arbitrary about what they will do and what they won't do. They have their own way of doing things, and they won't explain. So a lot of authors are very frustrated with Amazon and trying to look elsewhere where to put their books. And Library Thing is a place, Goodreads is a place. But you can run into trouble with all these places because the trolls are everywhere, and they've got nothing better to do apparently than make people miserable.
You're building the case, Sally, and I love it, for doing what I do, and you're giving the reason why I do what I do. Thank you for doing that. Well, because
you're welcome.
Well, because if we self-publish, so to speak, whatever that means, and it means different things to different people, we control the process. And you know what? When you want to sell a book, it's marketing. It's a traditional marketing concept to try to sell a book. So if you know what needs to be done, just go do it. Just publish it and get it done and do it. And I think the way that we measure the success of a book is dramatically different today because of all the things that you and I have been talking about. One of the things that really has stuck with me, one of the lessons to be learned that I don't necessarily agree with, but Brian Tracy, one of the most prolific small business authors, maybe the most prolific small business authors, written over 75 books, says that he will not write a book. He won't take the time to write a book unless he feels strongly that 1 million people will read that book. Now, that's a pretty bold statement that only a few people can make, but that's his parameters for publishing a book and writing a book.
So he doesn't give them away, I'm assuming. I'm assuming he charges for them. And if he's written over 75 of them, and let's just say for a minute that each one costs $5, is he a bazillionaire?
I don't know for sure, but I'm going to guess he is.
Well, tell him that I have a patreon.com campaign /Sally Ember, and I could really use some help getting my books into print if he wants to give me some donations.
I was invited to, as I said earlier, into a project that he was the celebrity, if you will, in that project. The project was built around him. Just this week, I was invited for a third time to do another book with him, another chapter of a book with him. I chose not to, obviously, because I've done it. I've gone through the process of doing one. It did wonderfully well for me, but I'm doing something. I'm into something else right now. So, why I didn't want to participate. But it's a different world we live in. You and I probably sound like could go on for hours and hours. What I'd like to do is bring our discussion, part 2 discussion, to a close by you talking about what you are currently publishing, what's happening, where you are in it, and what's going to be happening in your future.
Well, thank you. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to explain that I am a blogger, and I am a Google Plus Hangout on Air /YouTube talk show host. And the name of my show is Changes, Conversations Between Authors. And I want to emphasize, even though you said I interviewed you, I don't do interviews. I think they're boring. I'm sorry to say that for all the people who do interviews, but I do conversations. Like what we're doing today is a conversation.
I don't think I used the word. Did I use the word interview? And if I did, I apologize.
You did, but most people do by accident.
I apologize. You and I had a discussion. We had a discussion.
We did.
Yes.
We did. And I really appreciate the discussions I've had with every one of my authors. I'm up to almost 40 now. I do it almost every Wednesday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, USA. I'm always looking for new authors. They can be any genre, fiction or nonfiction, poetry, playwrights, I don't care. As long as they're interesting and they can keep it PG-13, we could have a great conversation. And we talk about lots of topics. We will give you a chance to promote your book, whatever you're writing, whatever you're doing, but we'll also talk about social change and politics and personal stuff and whatever we want. So that's my show. It's an hour long and I love doing it. And because of that,
I was going to say, if I might interrupt for a second, excuse me, you did something this last week, and I don't know if it's something new for you or you do it traditionally, but you offered to me, because I've been on Changes, obviously we talked about it, you offered me the opportunity to blog. Is that something,
yes.
Is that something
yes.
new that you're doing?
No, I do it once every 6 months for my guests. I say, now that I have a semester, I'm still a teacher at heart, and now that I have a semester behind me, I'm going to give all the last semester's students, my guests, a chance to guest host on my site. I have a pretty good Alexa rating, and I like Wednesdays to be my Changes day, so I don't blog on Wednesdays. So I like to give it over to anybody who would like to have it to announce the launch of a book or a new project or rant and rave and pontificate on some topic. As long as it's in harmony with my site, go look at my site, see the kinds of things I write about. We talk about it. I have the chance to edit it. I show it to you before it publishes to make sure you like it. And then it goes up live on the Wednesday that you pick.
And I have a question?
Yeah, sure.
Can I do a video and not do a written blog?
I bet you could. I bet we could figure out how to put it up. I've got some of my book trailers up on my site, so I don't see why that would be a problem.
I would be honored to do a video. I'm not. I don't enjoy writing as much as I enjoy doing videos, producing videos.
Okay. Well, what I would want you to do is I will ask you to send me an email making your proposal and telling me what date you want. And then I'll send you my guidelines and we'll adjust them for videos.
Is there a 100
Right?
page guideline to your vid?
No, it's one email and it's just got some things about how I need you to send me a bio with it or a picture, some of which I already have from my changes guests anyway. Or, you know, a title, you know, just basic stuff, right?
I
It's
think
no
you
big deal.
didn't. You might have even done that in the email that I got from you last week or the week before.
I might have sent some of them. I can't remember what I sent to people at this point, but yeah, I might have sent the guidelines. It's not hard. And what I really want is for people to get more exposure with a different group. You know, you've got your followers, you've got your readers or your video watchers that know you, but they aren't necessarily the same people that know me. Although we intersect because I've had you on my show and now you're going to have me in your book, there's still a lot of not overlap in our Venn diagrams, if you can picture that.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
getting some exposure on each other's sites is a great opportunity that I like to offer people. And the reason I like to do that, as I explained in my most recent blog post where I've guest blogged and also on my own site reposted it, is that a little over a year ago, something else we both share is I had a traumatic brain injury. And so for a while I couldn't write, couldn't think, couldn't do a lot that I used to do. So the video show was something I could do. And it was still interesting and fun for me. So that's what I did.
Why I can't write. You hit the nail on the head.
I bet. Yeah, it really affected me. And I'm very lucky that I was able to resume to some extent my blogging, which are really short pieces. But I just started this last spring being able to come back to my fiction writing. So you asked me, what am I doing? I have a science fiction series I was in the middle of creating where I'd already published 2 books when I got injured. And I was in the middle of writing the 3rd and had already started the 4th. It's a 10-book series that I'd already sketched out, and it just all went on hold for over a year. And then just the last few weeks, I finished book 3. And it's out to my cover artists, it's out to my beta readers, and it's going to be going into pre-orders November 1st and released on December 8th, which is the birthday of a very dear friend of mine, Mario Casa. And so I'm excited to have that come out, and I've already been working very, very excitedly on book 4. And it's a science fiction / romance utopian, not dystopian, view of the future and the current and immediate future. And there are aliens, and there are changes in the social and political life, and there are multiple planets and multiple timelines because it's a multiverse situation. So it's very unusual. A lot of people have liked it. Some people have been like, I hate this. And there's everything in between. So it's for young adults, and people that aren't quite sure what they like to read, but it's not for kids.
So your 10-book commitment, how far out do you think that will take you?
Well, that's the other part that I'm excited about. For books 1, 3, 5, and 7, and 9, I gear it more toward adults. For the even-numbered books, 2, 4, 6, 8, I'm gearing them more to the younger readers and having more characters in those books that are younger be the narrators. For books 8 and 9, I'm inviting collaboration. I'm inviting writers, contributors, suggestions of that age group to be part of the writing process, to co-create with me. So I'm talking about that and asking for people to think about contributing, and I'm giving a deadline of a little over a year and a half from now for people to let me know if they're interested. So book 7 is the ones for adults, and book 8 is the one, 8 is the one for younger adults, and 9 is the one for adults. And then when I get to book 10, I hope by then to have collected a whole lot of other ideas, questions, suggestions, and complaints for the other 9 volumes. And then I hope to respond to them and write what I need to write for volume 10.
Well, it seems like you might have the next 5 or 6 years charted.
Well, I was doing 2 books a year. And at this point, I'm not making myself stick to that. I'm maybe one every 7 to 9 months and see if I can do that. Because again, because of the injury, I'm slower and I have to take more time with what I'm doing. But it's really been great to get back to it. And I love this kind of writing. It's a lot of science research, a lot of social science research that goes into it. It's a very intricate blending of fact and fiction. And like I tell people when they ask me in interviews, I lend these characters my biography and my family and my friends' biographies to start with. Anecdotes, background, demographics, all come from real people, and then I change it. And then I do composites, and then I just make stuff up.
Have I asked you if you know Michelle Elise Mayer?
I don't know her.
Oh my goodness. You are going to get together with her very, very quickly.
Well, go ahead, put us together. Give her my email and give me hers.
I will facilitate, because one of her major themes, and she's an author, one of her major themes is trauma. It's absolutely, actually, if you look at chapter 20 of my book, chapter 20 had 5 or 6 different interviews in it, discussions, and Michelle was one of them.
Okay.
But because she's had a head injury, and so she does a lot of counseling. The two of you will be together in the next 24 hours.
Oh, good. I'm excited. Well, the other thing I want people to know, and I think this is really important, is that I'm really excited to understand and learn more about what makes people like writing, or creating video books, or writing poetry, or whatever it is you're doing that's creative in this realm. And that's the reason I do my show, is so I can hear from people like, why do you do what you do? Tell me what it is for you. And then we go off on other topics. So I like that because I like hearing it.
Well, you do a wonderful job with it. And thank you for including me in it. And I'm real excited about putting this discussion together and making it chapter 22, because I know the number 22 is very special in your life.
Well, it is very special in my life because that's my birth date, and this is my birth month, and so I'm having a birthday in 2 weeks. So that's very exciting. August 22nd.
Not in 2 weeks. Next week.
Well, it is now next week. You're right.
Well, the reason I know that is because my mother's 92nd birthday is August 21st.
Oh, that's right. It's coming right up. And so that's exciting for your family. That's a way bigger milestone than mine. I'm only going to be 61. But to me, that's a big deal because my father, Oliver Sholem, passed away at 61. And my brother now has exceeded that. He's 1 year older than I am. And it was all a big sigh of relief when he made it to 62. And so we're all hoping to get to 62 and keep going, but you never know. So I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost a lot of family members. I bless every month, every year, every gray hair. And I'm glad to be here.
Wow. Another similarity between you and myself that we'll discuss in greater detail. My father passed away when he was 58, 42 years ago. And I am 66. So, and my father gave me, thank you, Dad, a lot of bad heart genes that fortunately in my lifetime have been fixed and corrected or replaced or whatever. In his lifetime, they didn't know enough about the heart to do the things that have happened in my lifetime. So that's another similarity that you and I share, Sally.
Well, there are lots of things modern medicine has done wrong, but there are some they've done right, and many of us benefit from the ones they've done right. Yes. So we're blessed in that way.
We are very blessed. We are very blessed. So thank you, Sally, for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to do part 2 of chapter 22. And within the next week, it will be in its publishable form. So when it is done, I will make sure that you get a review copy, if you will, of my video book. But thank you, and then we'll do. It's been a pleasure, and who knows, maybe there'll be another chapter in the book that you and I will get together on. Well,
it is a great offer. Thank you. And I really enjoyed talking with you. And I wish you all the best with your chapters and all your other projects. And Wiwekananda and you and your new project that you're doing. I'm excited for you.
Thank you very much. And for all the folks that are watching this particular chapter in our book, we'll see you the next time, which may very well be the best time.